think we're about to get started here. If you had a chance to visit that link, we really appreciate it. We are going to use that data there for our demo today. This is the Redis 3.2 Geospatial talk. My name is Andrew Bass. What we're going to cover today is a few basics of the geo commands that are new as of May 6th in the stable branch of Redis. We're also going to tell you about a few of the gotchas we found while we were building an app over the last month, a team of people, friends I have here. And we're going to cover the basics of the geo commands, which are pretty simple. They're really well documented. We'll cover those gotchas, like I said. And we have a short demo app that we built in Node, which will use that demo, that data that you put in for us on that demo we're going to do. And then we also have a full-scale app that we built over the last month, so you can see a little bit more what that might look like in a real app. Okay? So who are we? My name is Andrew Bass, like I said. Today I'll be presenting with Deanna and Sean. They're classmates of mine at Coding House. It's a boot camp down in Fremont, about an hour from here. We all come from different backgrounds, and we're trying to get into software development. And that's how we met Dave Nielsen from Redis. He actually came down and gave us a talk about a month ago, and he mentioned these geo commands that were on the testing branch that were going to be made stable pretty soon. And we thought that it might be neat to try to build an app with that and see if we could play around with it a little bit. So we did, and when we were kind of keeping in touch with him, he said, "Why do you guys come down and give a talk about that?" He actually told us that like last week, so here we are. Sergio is not with us here today, but he did build the app that we're going to show at the very end of the talk. And if you want to check it out, it's paceme.us. We'll have that. That's what we'll show at the end. But if you want to kind of show off Geo to some other people, there's a really easy guest view to see, so you don't have to log in or anything. Okay, so Redis 3.2, as I mentioned, stable very recently. It includes these new geo commands, which is for geo indexing. The most basic way to look at it is you're just going to be saving those locations in some kind of key, and you're going to compare them. Redis is going to take care of all the comparison for you. Makes it very simple. It's a special kind of sorted set, so all of the sorted set commands that you're already familiar with can be used in this case. Okay, so the first couple of commands we want to show you, GEOADD and GEOHASH. GEOADD, very simple, just like it says. You're just adding a location to your set. So you're going to pass in a key, longitude, and latitude. That's our first gotcha we have here today. Basically, when people talk about latitude and longitude, they always say latitude and longitude, right? But if you're actually working with geo information systems, it's more typical to say it the other way. It's the XY coordinates. So you're going to talk about longitude, then latitude. So if you're not very familiar with the world of geo, that might catch you off guard like it did us at the beginning. It also uses the Earth model as a sphere, so you do have a small amount of error, about 0.5%. Depends on which part of the globe you're in, how far north or south is going to affect that, okay? And when we're passing in those longitude and latitudes, you need to know that we're going to be using positive and negative. So if you're going to be west of the prime meridian, those will be negative longitudes, and if you're south of the equator, those will be negative latitudes. All right. So I do want to demo a little bit of the command line for you. That's what Dave said we might like to see that. And if I can just hit the right buttons here. There we go. So the first command is GEOADD. I wanted to save that one, so I'm going to have to type those numbers in. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to hit one more button. Thank you. Would have been really exciting for everyone. Is it big enough or not at all? Okay. Hold on. Just make it a little bit bigger for you. Better? Yes? In the back? Okay, I'm getting some thumbs up, so if not, you better yell at me. So here we're doing a GEOADD. The first parameter we're passing into the Redis conference attendees. That is the key. We're passing in the longitude first, then the latitude. And we're going to give it the Twitter handle at Redis Conference, which is the official Twitter handle for the conference. And we're also going to pass in Salvatore's location in Sicily there. It's just a generic location. All right, so now we've added those. And we're also going to demo the GEOHASH, which I'm going to explain what it does. But I just want you to see that if we do a search for Redis Conference attendees, and we'll just look at Redis Conference, we get this really strange string back. It doesn't really mean anything to us. It's kind of nonsensical. That's the GEOHASH. So we'd like to see, there we go, okay. What is a GEOHASH, all right? So the way that kind of works, it's a little bit of a multi-step process, but you're going to take the world, you're going to divide it in half. And one side will be a 0, one side will be a 1. We're going to use binary. And we're going to save that digit. For example, San Francisco is on the left-hand side. That's going to be the 0 digit. We're going to save that, and we're going to keep dividing. So it might start to look like this. So the first digit was a longitude, and the second digit is going to be a latitude. That's going to alternate back and forth. So you're able to take this latitude and longitude, two separate numbers, and you're going to kind of combine those into one long binary string, which for San Francisco, where we're at, is something like this 122 west, 37.8 north, and that's going to be this long binary string. But that gets converted into this GEOHASH. Now, this isn't something that Redis invented. It's a standard that's used. If you go, that website's probably a little small for you, sorry, geohash.org, or if you just Google it, it's one of the first things to pop up. If you put in any longitude and latitude in there, it's going to return the string formatted in the same way. And why do people want to use a GEOHASH? Okay, one reason we're using it, actually, it's being stored in a little bit different way, but we're going to talk about it this way for now. When we store this GEOHASH, we can compare those strings. And if you look at the first three cities I have there, San Francisco, San Jose, and Los Angeles, they're a little bit closer together. So the first few digits in the string, the first few characters in the string are similar. So we know that those are a little bit closer together. And as we get further away, the similarities go away. So we know that that's a lot further away. It's actually being stored as like a 52-bit integer that means nothing, unless Salvatore nods no that that's not what's happening at me. So we want to be able to compare those. One reason you'll use a GEOHASH, you might want to return a GEOHASH, is if you're making a URL and you want a unique ID. So you want to say this restaurant is at this location, and it's just going to be /9Q8YY, and you know exactly where that's going to be for when it loads into your website. You can also use it for making unique IDs, something like that, since it's going to be different for every place. All right. The next command we're going to talk about is a little bit easier to understand than GEOHASH, GeoPosition. It's just going to return the position of the member that you already passed in, and that's going to give you the longitude and latitude back. But we do want to notice one little gotcha. Actually, I want to say this is a great opportunity for you to use PubSub. We're not going to demo that today, but if you have a position that's constantly updating, you could PubSub and see where like a car is moving, or where the city bus is, or maybe Uber could track where their cars are at that time. So that would be a useful case for this, maybe. All right, and we're going to demo it now. Yeah, so we're going to do just GeoPosition. Yeah, I'm going to hit that. I'm going to forget that button every time. Sorry. That's the problem with practicing on your own monitor at home. You just see it there, and you don't even think about how it's actually going to be here, right? So we have Redis conference attendees, and we're going to pass in at RedisConf. And we'll go ahead and pass in Salvatore as well. So we get both of those back, and you'll notice that it's a lot different than the original number we passed in. So if you can still see it up there, yeah. If you see those numbers at the very top of the screen, I passed in a much shorter amount of information, but it's returning this very, very specific data back to me, okay? That's because we're converting to that 52-bit integer, and we're looking only at squares. So it's defaulting to some point in that square, because no matter how small you go, you're still looking at a square with a 1 or 0 that you could cut in half, right? So it's picking a certain point and kind of defining for you what that accuracy actually looks like, and that's how it's getting stored in reference. So it's a little bit different than what you passed in, but that's still okay. I'm going to talk about that now. All right? If I can hit the right commands again. Okay, good. So what kind of accuracy do we need when we're using Geo, and how much are those digits going to affect us? Now, this is just off Wikipedia. You can go on there and read it. I just cut off the table a little bit. Don't worry about all the data that's up there. But essentially, every decimal place you go in, you're going to be going from 1 kilometer to 0.1 kilometers to 10 meters to 1 meter to 0.1 meters, so on and so forth, down, 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 and down for each decimal place. So what is going to be useful for us using Redis, like we heard yesterday, it's a great application for a cell phone. A user is standing in a city, they want to see restaurants near them. They're going to pull out their cell phone. well, how accurate do they need to be able to find that restaurant, right? If they get within a kilometer, that's not going to be helpful. But if they get within 100 yards or 100 meters, that's probably not helpful. But maybe 10 meters or a meter, they're going to find it. They're going to see a sign, and they're going to find what they're looking for. So for us, that's going to be about 4 or 5 decimals. 4 decimals is going to be about 10 meters of accuracy. 5 is going to be 1 meter. So you saw that string was like 10 decimals. That's like microns. That's like the hair on your head. As the wind blows, it's not going to be accurate for really locating something. So those numbers don't matter for us, all right? And there's also that error from the way we're storing the data, the very small error, so it becomes insignificant, all right? You want to think 4 or 5 digits is going to get you close enough for our use cases. And that accuracy is going to change based on where you're at. As you go further north or south, you're going to get a little bit more distortion or a little bit less. But that's a 10, just an easy number to remember, okay? All right, so now is when we get into, we've seen how to set up users, how to save those geolocations, but we want to know, what is Redis really doing for us? I mean, what good does it do me to save these locations? Well, GeoDistance is the first one we see that's going to be really useful. You're going to pass in 2 different members and see how far apart they are. So I'm going to try to do this a little bit better this time. There we go. Yes. And we want to pass in, we're going to get the GeoDistance for our Redis conference attendees. And we're going to check how far did Salvatore come this morning, or well, yesterday or the last few days, to present to us and tell us all about this and share our joy of Redis with everyone, right? So, oh wow, that's a really weird number. It turns out that GeoDistance is defaulted to meters, so that's not very helpful. So we'll try that again, and we'll pass in MI for miles. Again, this is all in the documentation, very easy to follow. So it came about 6,600 miles to be here with us, but you know, since he's from Italy, we'll probably want to see that in kilometers. Okay, and one thing I wanted to point out that's really exciting, if you're trying to learn this stuff, with the new 3.2, if you have it installed on your computer, it does this. It might be hard to see because of the, actually, you see this member 1, member 2 key. It's telling you what parameters to pass in. And when I first saw it, I thought it was an error. I was like, I didn't type that. What is that? But anyways, I was really excited about that. So, and see if I can get, there we go. So that's GeoDistance. Now, GeoRadius. And the next one we're going to talk about, GEORADIUSBYMEMBER. They're pretty much the same command. One, you're going to be looking at a latitude and longitude, and GEORADIUSBYMEMBER, you'll be searching by that member. We have a lot of these flag options on here, like with coordinates, with distance, with hash, count, ascending or descending. And Deanna is going to be demoing most of those for you. I do want to say one thing. When you do the GeoRadius, if you pass in the with hash, this is one of those gotchas, it doesn't return that GeoHash I showed you. It returns that 52-bit integer, which doesn't have much of a use case. You can use it like for a little bit of debugging and things. It's hard to find a lot of information about it, so hopefully someone will figure out more about it than I understand and be able to explain it if you need it, okay? So don't use with hash expecting to get that unique hash ID that I showed you with GeoHash. Is that? All right, just looking for a nod or two. Yeah, and let's go ahead and try to do this command as well. So I'll just sample one, and then Deanna's going to come up here and show you another command. So if we just type GeoRadius, the Redis conference attendees again, pass in a latitude and longitude, we'll search who's within 50 miles. Now I have the data that you guys put in, but it was only as of like 9 o'clock this morning. Deanna will have the most recent data. So we can see that these people are from the Bay Area. So this might be the start of like a useful app to say, pretend you're in Denver, Colorado, and you want to find some people near you. Well, you come on here and say, oh, these are all Redis users who are at the conference. I remember meeting Nicholas Dunham, number 8 there. I should get in touch with him. Maybe we can meet up and he can help me through my problem. So again, this is just a sample, but that's an idea of how you might use it. Or you're going to be looking for restaurants nearby on a cell phone, right? We're going to say, this is the point of the user. It's passed up the longitude and latitude, and you're going to search nearby them for restaurant set or places for coffee or whatever that set of data is that you want to demo for them. All right. And the last one is GEORADIUSBYMEMBER. So this one, instead of passing in that longitude and latitude, you're actually passing in the member name for example, at Redis conference and searching a radius from their point. So maybe that user is logged in and they want to see what people are nearby them, right? So instead of connecting a person's cell phone with locations around them, you want to connect a person with other people who are moving around and maybe live updating their locations. They're going to pull out their phone, hit a button, and it's using their stored location and looking for other people's stored locations in that area. But Deanna is going to demo that for us with our little demo app we had here. That's basically what it does. You're finding people near you who were at the Redis conference based on the zip code. And again, that data is passed in by zip code, so it's actually a Google API we use to get back just a generic centered up longitude and latitude for that. So there will be some error, but also we didn't want to do like really specific information on people. Yeah, Deanna. Oh, thanks.
So, hi everyone, my name is Deanna. I also worked with Andrew and Sean and Sergio, who's not here with us today, on this app that we built using Redis's new geo commands. Right now, first I'm just going to start off with a simple app that we put together that Andrew was just explaining prior, just to see the commands put into practice. So 1 second, let me just get this all pulled up. So this is, the display was all messed up when I put it here. Okay, so it's just a demo app, and I'm going to be showing you more notably the GEOADD and GEORADIUSBYMEMBER commands, just to see, you know, which users, how far they traveled to get here to Redis conference, and you'll see what that looks like here. So really quickly, we pulled in. This GET request just makes a request to the form that many of you should have already filled out prior. And it uses the GEOADD command right here. You can see that the syntax used, we actually used a Redis npm package for this. The syntax for the GEOADD here is exactly as you would type it in the command line, with the difference of, you know, the commas instead of spaces. But it would be, in the command line, it would be GEOADD, the key right here, which in our case is Redis conference attendees, as Andrew demoed, and the latitude and longitude and latitude, which here we have stored as variables, and the member, which in our case would be user.twitter handle. We have you guys filled in your Twitter handles, and that just adds it to our local database. I'm going to be demoing it locally, and Redis's default port is 6379. So let's see who traveled to Redis conference within a 10-mile radius. Let's start off with that. Okay, we see Diopode right here. He's 4 miles away. Redis conference, that's, you know, this place. We're here, 0 miles. And we have a lot of people just within the general area. And if you wanted to pass in another parameter, for example, like another radius, 50 miles, you get more. But you see now that they're not in really any logical order, so another parameter that you could pass to it right here. So let me close this. So actually, yeah, what this does is it passes in the Twitter handle and the radius as a parameter, and the Twitter handle here is the member. We store those as variables. So now we use the GEORADIUSBYMEMBER command, and again, it would be GEORADIUSBYMEMBER key, which is the Redis conference attendees, the member, and the radius, which in the last thing I just demoed was 50 miles. There, again, as Andrew mentioned, it defaults to meters, and you could pass in other options like kilometers as well, but for the purposes of our app, it has to be miles. And with distance, which is one of the options. But let's say you wanted some sort of order, like who came the nearest, or you want to see those displayed first, you could put in ascending, so let's do that. So now you see they're not in any order, but if I did the same thing again, RedisCon 50 miles away. So now they're in order. We know that, and Dunham Nicholas, who is also from Coding House, he actually lives in San Francisco. He's like right around the block, and then all these people further away from like within 50 miles. I know that Salvatore came from Italy, so if we wanted to demo that, actually, it would be nice to see that in descending order. To see who traveled the furthest, you would just pass in this parameter. Sorry, 1 second. Descending. And let's just, for the sake of this, try like 8,000 miles just to see everybody in our database stored right now. So we see that Salvatore did win for furthest traveled, 6,567 miles away. And it seems like a lot of people traveled pretty far too. I don't know if any of you guys see yourselves up here, but Revsterman, 6,492 miles away, that's pretty far. If you're here, just let us know where you came from. Yeah, and then you can go all the way down. We're here, redisconf. Another option that you could pass through to the GEORADIUSBYMEMBER command is with chord. So that would just also return the longitude and latitude. If for whatever reason you would need it, for example, to use it to generate a map, you can use that. So let's do that. I know I keep demoing redisconf. We'll demo someone else later. Let's say 1,000 miles away. So that, as you can see, also displays the longitude and latitude if you pass in the with chord command. And another option that you could add is with hash, but as Andrew mentioned before, it just returns a 52-bit unsigned integer. It's of no practical value to the user, so we won't be demoing that. So yeah, those are the options you can pass. And let's just do one more thing. So let's see, just for demonstration purposes, how far everyone is from Salvatore in Italy. So yeah, if someone's at Barbie, I don't know who filled that out, but yeah, so we see everyone, so relative to Salvatore, everybody here, or most of us, is actually really far away from him, all within like 5,000, upwards of 4,000 miles away from him. So that's how those are some sample use cases. And right now, I'm just going to also show you really quickly the app that we built, which is called PaceMe, to see an even more practical use case. What this app does is you want to go find a running buddy near you, but you don't have anybody near you that you know to run with or who runs your pace. This app would solve that problem for you. So I'm actually logged in, but let's show the register view. If you were a guest, the guest view, not logged in. So what you can do is you can just go here, find a buddy, and you could type in a zip code. So let's say people who are here at the Mission Bay Conference Center. 1 second, 94158, my bad. Yeah, so you can see the results are immediate. These users are already in our database, Redis. And the people in the top 4 are actually the 4 of us who worked on this app, and then a lot of other people have also registered for this, and a lot of these people are actually pre-generated dummy users, so that's why a lot of the data is slightly nonsensical, but for the most part, up here on the first couple rows, they're actually real people who registered for this demo app, also not actually deployed or anything. And you can also change radius, so another San Francisco radius. Let's see, 94111, yeah. So yeah, again, you can see the results are immediate. And one more, we actually came up from Fremont, so that zip code is 94539. So a lot of users. But again, with this guest view, the options are limited. We only limited to a default of 10 miles, so you don't see that many people. But if you were logged in, so this is my profile. You have a lot more options. Here, this is relative to me. I signed up with the zip code of this area, which is 94158. And all these other filters, like sort by gender, age range, or ascending, descending, mile pace, that's actually front-end filter, but the miles that you're passing in, that's all making calls to Redis in the back end. So here, these are the people who are within 10 miles of me, runners within 10 miles of me in this database. But let's say I wanted to do, let's say 50 miles. You can see almost instant, whoa, sorry, didn't mean to click on his profile. You can see almost instantly that change. It returns back all the other users. So the code, really quickly, I won't show you too much of the code that we did. If you wanted to see it, and also for the demo app, we will stick around if you just wanted to see the code that we actually used. But we used a lot of the GeoRadius commands, hset, hgetall, which we can go into later. And yeah, that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, we'll take some questions. We'll try to answer them. It looks like we finished a few minutes early. If anyone has any questions.
5 minutes.
Yes.
So I actually just have some observations after using Redis for doing geo-indexing for a couple of years. So this is my first real
nice.
exposure to the geo commands. So there's some difficulties, I guess, with this approach once you reach scale. So this would work great once you're on a single Redis. But once you have to shard, you're going to run into a lot of trouble because users can move between. So what we do at Lyft, actually, we track a ton of data. And I guess the first difficulty that you have is that you want to be able to expire data out of the set. So if we had every driver that had ever kind of driven around in the data set, and then we tried to pull that data back every time you were looking for a nearby car, there would be a tremendous amount of data. So we have to have a way to kind of have recency for that data. So you could go and clean it up manually, I suppose. So that's one thing to consider. But yeah, then the other thing is once you want to shard it onto multiple instances, the geo, I don't believe you're going to have to build a lot of custom stuff like we've done. So if anyone's interested, I can talk more at length about it. But the geo commands are really cool if you're just getting started, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. That's great because our experience is very limited with Geo, so maybe he'll be able to help you with some more difficult questions. He saved us, I think. Any other questions? Yes?
Yes, it is. I forgot.
The code for PaceMe? Yeah. We can push I'll put the link up.
Yeah, it is on GitHub. If you want it, you can come talk to us after.
Is it on yours or Sergio's?
On Sergio's.
Yeah, if you go to the PaceMe, so we've just put our contact info here at the bottom instead of trying to list all of it out for everybody. And if you click on Sergio, he has it, and then I'll just tweet out a link for it.
It's GitHub right now.
Yeah, we can just open it. There he is enjoying a burger. And it's going to be one of these ones that he just did. Redis conference sample app. So it's he has this weird username, CZECHH, at Redis, oh darn it, at Redis conf sample. All right, yeah, /Redis conf sample, sorry. Yeah, so it's a pretty simple app, and again, that was just to kind of show you the basics of how it looks different in Node versus how it looks on the command line. And I'm sure if you built anything in Node, you've probably used Redis npm package or Redis IO. I think we used Redis, I'm trying to remember now, the Redis IO one wasn't supporting the geo commands when we first tried to use it because it was still on the testing branch. So actually we had like a lot of problems building our app and deploying it because there wasn't any, like AWS didn't have just a package. You could just use version 3.2 or you couldn't just use it on the cloud, on Redis Labs cloud. So we had to like manually install it on AWS on an EC2 instance. So I'm sure that people with more experience could have done it in a few hours and figured it out, but it took me a significant amount of time to figure all that out. But yeah, it was a great learning experience for us anyways. And I'm sure that all of that's going to be much simpler for everyone going forward. If you check out my site, I have a blog post about how to install it on EC2 instance. So if that's something that appeals to you or you really want to launch something that's available for people to use instead of localhost, it's not too many steps, but it's very clear. And I also had a teammate test it, all the commands on a fresh instance to make sure we didn't miss any steps for you, which seems like when I look for documentation, there's always this step that they didn't tell you that I should have known. But as a beginner, it was hard for us. Are there any other? Yeah, there we go. Can you come up to the mic or? No, you can
Comment to
stand
your
if you want.
point about installing it, I was able to do it in about 4 minutes with the Docker container.
Yeah, see,
So
somebody who knows what they're doing, like I
you
said.
just, yeah, it's up there.
So Docker. Yeah, and I installed it like a month ago, so there wasn't, maybe it's something they've already been on top of it. And if you haven't installed it on your local machine yet, it's super easy, just homebrew will do it. That's what we used, or the directions are on the Redis.io site. And if you haven't seen, actually they made another change here, which I was really excited about this one as well, since we have some extra time. When you look at the documentation on Redis.io commands, and then you're at a specific command, down here, it used to just show you the data, but now you can actually interact with those commands. So we could like run the same one they just ran if we wanted, or we could use like ZREMove and actually delete somebody out of there and run a ZRange and see which members are within a certain distance. So that's pretty cool. If you're trying to learn this stuff, you can play with it right there instead of having to go and play in your command line and figure out how it works. Any more questions? Yeah, I see one. Sorry. Is the distance between 2 points or also including the angle? Is that what you asked me? My understanding is that it's a straight line distance, like as the crow flies, as we would say. I don't, oh, this guy knows. This is why we need the advanced people here saving us. Oh, yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah, straight line on a sphere. What's that word, Habersign, right? Yeah, Habersign model of the Earth. And some of that is in the documentation. I don't know if we're on a GeoCommand here. It doesn't mention it on this one, but you can find that on the documentation. It'll mention it. It's like a sentence. It says that's the model they use. That was one of the little gotchas, so we tried to cover it. Okay, nice. Oh, there's another hand, yes? Yeah, the zip codes, I don't know if she has that data up here. It's just a Google API we used. So when you typed your information in on the little demo app we had the link up to at the beginning, that was actually making a Google API call and using your zip code, and we were storing the latitude and longitude. So we weren't storing your zip code, we were storing the latitude and longitude we got back when you typed the information in originally. And then the app we actually demoed just made a call to that database and wrote it onto our local host because of those kind of problems that apparently aren't as hard as we made them out to be. But we didn't want to have to like deploy to AWS and set up the EC2 instance and everything for this demo app, so we just did it on localhost. Yeah. Yeah, my understanding is it's just trying to do some sort of geometric centering of the zip code. And again, for this demo, we weren't too concerned with the like really specific accuracy. And with the PaceMe app too, we're also just using the zip codes passed in. So that's like an improvement we could make to the PaceMe app is actually like using your phone and refreshing that location each time. But we built this for part of our class, so it was more about learning all these different parts, how they kind of fit together. You can see we used a lot of different technologies, which we had used Node before. We hadn't used, and Angular, sorry. We used Angular and Node, so all the other stuff was kind of learning for us. I'll try to, did most people hear that in the back, or I can sort of try to summarize it in a sentence or two? Do you all hear it back here? Or? Okay, so the first question was, is there a plan to allow you to define what accuracy you want to use? And Salvatore said that there isn't really because it's being stored as that sorted set, you need to define what accuracy you're going to use so that it can compare them. You can't have one that's like 1 decimal place and one that's 10 and try to rank them. It's going to be a little bit harder. You're going to start having things tie. You want them to be unique. More or less? Okay, yeah, he's like, well. Yeah, right. It's the 52-bit integer I talked about that I didn't really show is what the score is in the sorted set. So it needs to have those scores so you can see like who's winning or losing or who's that far away. It's going to look in that list and say these people are that far ahead or that far away, and that's how it gets the distance or the radius. And then the second question was, is there a plan to use something other than the sphere model, the Habersign? I've read it, but I never heard it said before. Other than radius for circles, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, so if you want to use like a polygon, like a triangle or an octagon or something, and he said that's something that they're working on, maybe thinking about doing because you can start to get some really interesting models. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I think we've got a couple of minutes left if there are any other questions, and we'll have this little sample app up if you want to just come and type in your Twitter handle and see if someone was near you or ask us some other questions, that's fine as well. Oh, thank you very much.